and he has served in the Muslim community as an imam and lecturer since 1998. He is on the management committee of Stockwell and Lambeth Interfaith Forum. He has translated and written over 15 books and has travelled around the world in over 25 countries, lecturing in Europe, Asia, North America and Africa. And I'm really thankful to him for being here with us tonight and talking to us. I would like to invite him to come over and talk to us. Thank you very much.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Tonight we've been asked to talk about a topic which is concerning most of the human lives, and it is a topic that concerns every individual. The life dynamics. And the spirituality itself develops through what we know as a soul or a ruh or spirit. One of the proofs, there is a book by one of the contemporary writers in Qom, a teacher well known as Hassanzadeh Amali, Ayatollah Hassanzadeh Amali, and he has a book called Lectures on the Proof of Existence of a Spirit. These lectures were delivered over a few years, and he has more than 200 proofs on the existence of a spirit. I would just like to mention one or two. Avicenna or Ibn Sina, the Muslim philosopher from the 5th Hijra century, in the 5th century of the Islamic calendar, just over 900 years back. So probably 10 something or 1100s.
10th century,
the Christian,
yes.
10th century. And I think he has also developed on the spirituality or the existence of a spirit or ruh. And he says that one of the proofs on the existence of a spirit is in your daily life you many times notice that things have previously happened. You seem to think that something has happened. This may have happened before. He says that these things happen in your dreams, and when your soul and spirit is wandering around, and they experience those things from before. And that is in itself a proof of the existence of a spirit. You experience things beforehand. God in Quran also says that one of the signs of the existence of God is your sleep. You sleep and you wake up. In fact, your soul had left this body in some way and comes back to this body, and you wake up. And God says, it is one of the signs that I exist. It was half death. Your perception was not working as it would be, but you still continue to think or dream, and when you wake up you remember many of those things. My topic concerning self, I will be touching on another proof that was given. You know, when we use the term, according to this writer, contemporary philosopher, he says when you say I, when you refer to I, myself, me, these terms, who are you referring to? What do you refer to? Is it your hand that you refer to? But no, this hand belongs to I, my hand. It also belongs to that same being or same existence that you refer to when you talk about I. Is it my eyes? No, again, these are my eyes. These I also belong to, the eyes also belong to that I. Is it my whole body? My body. No, but it is again, the whole body belongs to that being that you refer to as I. So that I or me or myself is something other than my body. That self contains your emotions and your memory. Even according to Islam, after one's death, they remember everything because memory is not contained in this brain. It is The emotions and memory and everything is with the spirit, with the soul, with the ruh. And that contains your emotions and your feelings about individuals. The spiritual development is so important because this body lives for 60, 70, 80 years, 100 years, and then it parts. But that soul is to live. Death is not an end, it is the beginning of a new life. And therefore, that soul continues to travel. And all the things that happen to us in this life, they reflect onto the spiritual life. The spiritual life is more important. If a person was not eating or drinking for a day or two, they would start feeling weak. However, if the spirit and the soul was not given food, because we do not feel and we cannot touch that spirit and have it in the five senses, therefore we will not realize how weak the soul and the spirit has become. So the spiritual development is very important because we do not have direct contact with it, in the sense that we do not experience our spirituality, and we think that we were made for this dunya, for this world, and not for the hereafter. There is no hereafter. We were only made to experience food and material, but not spirituality. Material is only one aspect of this life. Food and drink, shelter, your dress, all of these are connected to your body. They are not connected to your spirit. Let me just give you one dimension of something that was said by one of the Muslim leaders in the 14th centuries back, by Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. He had said, when a companion of his called Kumail went with him to the cemetery, he said, "Ya Ali, can I come with you to experience what you will be experiencing?" He said, "I'm going to the cemetery. Would you like to come?" He said, "Yes." He spoke to the people. He said, "Ayyuhan nas," or people of the cemetery, or you know, the ones who have left this world.
Yeah.
As far as, I'll not read the Arabic, I'm very much used to addressing a Muslim gathering, and usually I always use the Quranic verses in Arabic and then translate them. And I'm also used to referring to the traditions of the Holy Prophet and his successors in Arabic and then translate them. So if I do that, please forgive me for that. He says, as far as your houses are concerned, then others have come to live in them. As far as your spouses are concerned, then others have married them. As far as your wealth is concerned, people have divided it between themselves. Your own inheritors, your children, your brothers and sisters. Had you seen it in this life, how they were dividing your things, you would have been very hurt. And then he goes on in detail, and he says, this is the news about this world. Now tell me what has happened with you in the hereafter. And he says to Kumal, his companion, he says, do you hear anything? He says, I do not hear anything. Are they speaking? He says, yes. The spirits speak, and they communicate better than the ones that are living. But because of our sins, we have veils in front of our eyes and ears that we cannot see and hear them. What do they say, O Master? He says, they are saying, we don't care about what happened in the world. As far as our hereafter is concerned, then the grave is a house of darkness. It's a house of insects, and then he describes this. He says, the animal or the insect that we killed, if it sat on our body, eats us and we do not have the power. He says, why are you hurt? You do not live in this body now. He says, because in a house where you lived, once you leave that house, when other people occupy it and change it or modify it or destroy it, you feel hurt. I used to live in that house. I lived in that house for 10 years, 15 years. Now that you do not live there, you feel that the change that has come may not be to your like. Just like that, your spirit knows nothing but this body. It feels more strongly attached to this body than you feel attached to your house. So it says, why are these changes coming to it? Why is the body being decayed? You apply different oils and creams to your body to look after yourself. And now that same body is under the ground, under this world. You wore nice dresses to cover yourself from winter, to protect yourself from winter, and in summer, very nice thin clothes so you can get the air from. And now, that same body decays in front of your own eyes. What is it that attracts that body not to decay? Or it doesn't matter, it is the spiritual side of you, which we do not care in this world about. You do not care so much about your spiritual life. The hereafter is longer than this world. This world is only a dunya mazra'atul akhirah. Sorry. This world is only the field where you harvest and you put the seeds in, but you will cut the plant in the hereafter. This world is only to place the seeds in. The fruit will be in the hereafter. So whatever you do, the fruits will be in the hereafter. You plant and the hereafter will give you the fruit. Good or bad. Many times you do good things, so you will see the good outcome. And many times evil doing, see evil outcomes in the hereafter. So the spiritual side is very important, in the sense that you are hereafter. And why? Is it just? Is it justice of God that for only 60, 70, 80 years of life or 100 years of life, for eternity you will be in the hellfire, or for eternity you will be in the paradise? They say even for little doings in this world, if I was to pick up a knife, excuse me for this example, but if I was to pick up a knife and poke in my own eye, the act will be only a few seconds, but the loss of the eye will be for the whole life. Likewise in the hereafter, the things that you may do will be only for 70, 80 years, 100 years, but the hereafter, the consequences will be eternal. Why? Because if you were to live for another 100,000 years, you would continue the same life that you lived in the first 100 years, you would continue the same in the next 100,000 years, a million years, because that's how we are. I have gone on about the topic which I want to develop, and I have said a little bit about the hereafter, but now I want to touch more about this world, because that's where we are. How does it concern us? What is more important is this world. How does it affect? There may be different psychological approaches to the spiritual development and physical development. How it happens and what changes come to life. There are many different theories, and new theories keep coming every year, probably every few years. In Europe and in America, probably also in Asia and other countries. Many different theories, what changes come to this body and to the human psychology. The Quran also talks about them. I will briefly touch upon the teachings of the Holy Quran. There are 3 different types of spiritual sides of the human beings that the Quran has talked about. The Quran says that there is this Nafs Ammara, as it talks about, or the evil self. When a person thinks nothing but about selfishness, about his own self, about this world, nothing to do with the hereafter, that self may become very evil in the sense that he may only serve his own desires. The Quran in fact goes on to say, have you seen the one who has taken his desires to be his God? Your own desires become your God. My own evil desires may become my God. I may be serving the wealth so much so that, not that it has become a need, but it has become my God. Many times things become, you start to worship them, you start to serve them. They're not just a part of your life, you begin to serve them. Many times it is your lustful desires, your sexual desires. Many people go so much deep into them that they start to serve them. They become their gods. Your sexual desires are your God. You serve nothing but your sexuality. Likewise, there are many other things that may become fame. I don't know. There may be many different things that you can think of that I cannot even think of. Those things become your God. You start to serve them. You're not serving the good side, but you're serving the evil side. And that is known to be the evil self in the Holy Quran, or Nafs Ammara. The second side of the Quran has addressed is Nafs Lawama, or the self-accusing soul. The self-accusing soul. When you do bad, you accuse yourself. I shouldn't have done that. I'm a better person than that. I shouldn't have gone to hurt someone. I shouldn't have hit them. I'll just give you one outline on the Islamic perspective on the good and evil. Islam believes that there is a logical basis for good and evil. There is a logical basis for good and evil. How? There are certain evils that even if no messenger came from God to tell you that this is evil, your logic still guides you that this is evil. For example, if there was no prophet, there was no teacher, there was no messenger, there was no priest, there was no preacher to tell you that this is evil, your logic still tells you that this is evil. Lying is evil. Injustice or oppression is evil. Murder is evil. Theft, certain things that no one needs to tell you that these are evil. You would still know them. You don't need to follow a religion to know that these are evil things. And that's what you call that there is a logical basis for evil and good. Good and evil. Yes? Even if you did not follow Islam, you will still be held responsible on the Day of Judgment for these evil acts. And there are certain things which are known to be good. Even if you did not follow a religion, they will still be good. For example, telling the truth. For example, justice, helping others, many things. There's a whole list. I do not wish to go into that. But that's, even if you are not following a religion, your self-accusing self or soul would tell you that this is evil. There are many stories in Islam that say what should be condemned is selfishness. What happens is that many times people who are like myself, who become religious, they become religious and they say that I want to go to the paradise or heaven. And they are not serving God many times. They are serving that inner self again, that I want to become better and I want to do good for the hereafter. That is regarded as selfishness. Life is not to be lived for oneself. Life is to be lived for others. When Noah's Ark is famous, or most of the religions believe in Noah, like the Jews, Christians, Muslims, everyone. When he asked God, why have you punished all the people from my nation? God said, well, the ones who did evil for their evil doing, and the ones who were doing good because they only cared about themselves. When they looked at someone doing evil, they said, only he will be punished for it. I will not be punished for his deeds, so I should continue with my own good life. I care less about what happens to the others. And there are many, many stories like that in Islamic perspective, that you should not be selfish. I just say one little story that I like very much. Moses, when he was traveling next to a river, God said, I'll show you many of my signs. He was traveling, and until he reached a place, he came across a person who was sitting down serving God, and he said, God, who is this? He said, ask him. He said, who are you? He said, I have been hiding from the people. How do you know that I am here? He said, God guided me to you. Who are you? He said, I was a very sinful person, and I took a corner to repent, and I'm trying to do good deeds. He said, who are you? He said, I'm Moses. He said, the one that speaks to God? Yes. He said, ask your God, has he forgiven me? Because I have been evil for most of my life, but I have been repenting for the past many years. And Moses just suddenly saw a bird come, bring some fruits for him, and opened it and fed him. The moral of the story, I want your attention for more. He said, have you forgiven him, God? God said to him, he hasn't been forgiven. How long have you been repenting here? 40 years. 40 years, and God, you haven't forgiven him? But you are the most merciful. He said, there is one reason why I haven't forgiven him. Tell him that. He said, this bird has been coming for the past 40 years. It's an angel that I have been sending as a bird to feed him because he's repenting there. Because he had taken a corner, he would die of hunger. I have been sending this bird to feed him for this 40 years. Not once he has asked that bird, have you eaten yourself, or are you just feeding me? He said, that's the reason why he hasn't been forgiven. Selfishness. He said, now tell your God, will you give me something for these 40 years I have been serving him? He said, yes, one supplication, one prayer will be granted. One prayer will be granted. He said, just tell your God to make me so big that only I fit in the hellfire and no one else can enter. God said, tell him he's been forgiven. He said, why have you forgiven me now? Is it that you do not wish for others To go to paradise, heaven? He said, no, that is not the reason. Before you were not even caring about one being. That was that bird he was feeding you. And now you are caring about all of my creation. You are thinking about all other beings. And that has been the reason for your forgiveness. The purpose of life is to serve others. And that is a serve that is most liked by God. And that is the highest level of spirituality. And that is known in the Holy Quran as Nafs mutma'inna in chapter 89, verses 27 onwards. The soul is that is at rest. Tranquility is the highest level, at rest. God says, when I address that soul at death, He says, Irji ila rabbika radiyatan mardiyya. Return to thy Lord. In what way? That you are pleased with your God and your God is pleased with you. So far it seems that an angel is addressing him. But God says, no, at the highest level I will address you myself, not an angel of death. It says, Fadkhuli fi ibadi, enter my servants. Enter among my servants. So God is directly addressing him. The highest level of spirituality causes for the God to directly address you and then say that you are my servant. An angel doesn't say that Allah or God loves you, the Almighty God wants you. He says, no. Allah says, I remove all the connections and indirect methods of addressing him. I directly speak to him. It is I that am telling you. So the connections are broken. This is just one dimension. There are three things that I want you to address there. What happens is the most, if you permit me, I will continue for another probably 10-15 minutes, if people allow me to. And then I will let you ask questions. The Holy Quran, you know, the Holy Quran says about the different things that have been given to the mankind. God says that زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ. The things that have been most beautified for people are women, then children, and then wealth. You know, gold, silver, and the tills, and many things, God. But the first thing, He says the women, and then children, and then wealth. That's how we become. That's what's been beautified for you. But that's not what you should live your life for. Not for women, not for children, and not for wealth. What happens is that we pick up these things and we only serve to live for these things. But the purpose of life is not to serve worldly things. You should love your wife and children and your family members and others because of God. That God has made them to be close to you. And you know, when the Almighty God talks about the relationship between husband and wife, He says that He has placed in deep love. And He has made them a means of tranquility for each other. And then He says that they are a means of address for each other. And these are the words in the Holy Quran. Your spouses are a means of dress for you and you are a dress for them. What are the qualities of a dress? A dress covers you from heat and cold weather. And that's how the spouses should be for each other. They should cover each other from the cold and hot of this life. The second quality of the dress is it hides your deficiencies. I may have wounds and cuts, but the dress covers it and makes you look beautiful. That's how husband and wife should be for each other. They should cover each other's deficiencies. And they should make each other look beautiful to their own families. That's what, and there are many other aspects of a married life, which I do not wish to go into. I just want to touch on to one aspect. According to the Holy Quran and the teachings of the Holy Prophet, the human spiritual development does not start at birth. It starts at a much earlier stage. A stage where, in fact, when the human sperm is being fertilized at that stage, and during the pregnancy, whatever the mother listens to and sees, these are affected directly onto the child in the womb. And hence it's encouraged that they think of good things. And they try and be nice. The jihad or the holy vow for a woman is her pregnancy, that she should cover and look after herself as best as possible because she is bringing a new life. Going through the pains of childbirth, according to Islam, forgives all sins of a woman. She has a new birth herself. She has a new start in life. God has forgiven everything because she has given new life. She has brought a new life to this world. Now, those stages, according to the teaching of the Quran and the Holy Prophet, abortion is forbidden. According to some scholars, it is permissible only when there is a danger to the life of the mother, only that stage. But now I do not wish to go into the controversies, but just one aspect. What are the developments of the human fetus inside the mother? If you look at the jurisprudence, there is a different penalty at every stage. At 3 months, there will be a different penalty. At 4 months or 6 months, the penalties change. Because, according to Islam, the life is entering and is entering a new phase. And therefore, the penalties will be different. Even the miscarriage that comes to this world, Islam says it should be dignified and given respect and honor of burial. You cannot just leave it and throw it away, because it lived. Even though it lived only for a few months, a few weeks, it still requires the honor of burial. After birth, the Quran says that the suckling or the breastfeeding is for 2 years. There must be a change which we haven't searched in Islam. I wish that the Muslims in this 21st century develop their social sciences more than they previously have done. There has been a lot of work in the Muslim social sciences and philosophy, but not in the recent centuries. There has been more work in Europe and in North America in the past 20th century, in the 20th century, than there has been in the Islamic world. And I wish more work happens now, as there has been a lot of developments on psychology in the Western world. Muslims should use that and then look into the traditions of the Holy Prophet, and also look at the verses in the Holy Quran that talk about the spirituality and the psychology. Now, for 2 years, it is the mother's, and the whole upper structure and the face and the mind is being developed. What mother thinks is transferred, the Holy Prophet says. So, perform ablution, purify yourself when you're breastfeeding your child. The Holy Prophet says it is recommended that you purify yourself when you're breastfeeding, because you are transferring your thoughts to your child. Think that you're in the presence of God when you're breastfeeding, because you will be rewarded for it. The reward is very high. Now the second stage is at the age of 3 comes the hadi or the guide. That's when the child starts differentiating between good and bad. Or when my children usually, if I told them that do not hit your sister, they would say you are bad, or the terms we use in our own languages. Sometimes we try and keep. They would, because we only use very basic language with the children. Good and bad. This is good and this is bad. You are bad. You did something bad. So they would say, Dad, you are bad. They would say it back to you. Because now they've started differentiating and the language has come in. They can differentiate between good and bad. At an age when a child is about 5, 6, the traditions say you have to cover yourself. When you should not be uncovering yourself in front of a child that can now differentiate between good and evil. A girl after the age of 6 and 7, and boys also, you should now make them regular in prayer, because they are very innocent at that age. So innocent that they adapt anything that you give them. And the example given is that when you tell them to tell a lie, tell your child, someone is knocking on the door, tell them, I'm not at home. When you start teaching them to tell lies, they don't do it professionally. What do? They say, my dad is saying he's not at home. Because they can't do it. They're innocent. God has given them perfection. There are 3 types of perfections in human beings. There is the plant perfection, which only grows, yes, and gives fruits. And there is the animal perfection, which moves with free will and produces offspring. And then there is the human perfection, which is knowledge, which is spirituality. And that's what we're made for. And that's where I wanted to end. We are made for the perfection of humanity. We have been given the intellect. We are made to gain knowledge and spiritually excel. There are other stages which I do not wish to go into. I think I can bore you for a very long time about the developments of the spirituality and the human life in the traditions. I wish that it was developed further by the scientists and the Muslim scientists and the Muslim psychologists. Just one aspect. There is one tradition by the first Imam, Ali ibn Talib, where he says there are first 3 phases for human life. First 7 years, your child is your master. Meaning, do not make them work. Treat them as masters. The second 7 years is your slave. Meaning, the teaching part comes in. Be strict with them for those 7 years. First 7 years, do not be strict at all. Treat them like masters. Be very, very careful for these first 7 years. Treat them like masters. Next 7 years, treat them like slaves. Be strict with them. That doesn't mean hit them, beat them. It only means that be strict with them for the next 7 years. From the age of 7 to the age of 14. You can imagine, they're going through puberty, they're becoming adults, they are young adults, adolescents, you know. The next 7 years, they are your deputies or assistants. Or wazir, you know, the wazir. Even the English dictionary uses it but doesn't actually define it properly. They are your deputies and assistants. Take advice from them. Treat them like adults, young adults, from the age of 14 to 21. And then he says, then take them whatever they've become. After 21, they may have become your masters, they may have become your friends, they may have become your slaves. You know, many times they treat you like slaves, you know. They don't realize, usually after teenage, you know, once they've become teenagers, they would say, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, this is what comes in. You are from an old age, the times have changed. That's not how life is today. But when do they realize? When they have children of their own. My dad was right. But it's too late to realize that. In their 40s and 50s they realize. So these are the 3 stages. There are some other traditions that say up to the age of 30, your learning skills are at their peak. And after 30 they stop. And after 40 your skills are not for learning, but they are for teaching skills. From 30 to 40 they don't excel, but up to 30 your skills keep increasing. There are traditions by the Holy Prophet that say that after 40 your sins are not forgiven easily because you are at the maturity, you're at the peak of maturity. And at that time your prayers are not accepted easily because you are very mature. And the angels say, even now you still need to be taught. Even now you need a reminder after 40. And you should try and get a stick in your hand and keep reminding yourself that you will be going. So do not sin, you know, reminder. It's not an obligation, it's only a reminder. And then there are other things after 70, 80 and 90. After 70, if a person dies and the angels do not, you know, the treatment is very simple and easy because they've become old in the service of God. After the age of 80, God says, do not even shout at them, do not even, you know. And after the age of 90, they are forgiven and taken to the paradise because of their elderly age. God says their bones and their flesh became weak in my service. So at all the different stages there are traditions how a person should be, what they should be doing. I prepared other things, but the last point that I want to mention, the balance in life, and that's where I end. The balance in life, human life, is achieved in 4 things. And this is a summary of the work of the 2 scholars, Naraqis, Ahmad Naraqi and Mehdi Naraqi, father and son, who have worked on the ethics of philosophy, yes, the philosophy, you know, the philosophy of ethics, basically. And they have books which are probably hundreds of pages. The father wrote a 900-page book, Raza Rizvi, the Ascension of Morality, and the son has Jami Sada, 3 volumes, again, probably over 1,000 pages. And this is the summary outline in 4 sentences. The balance in life can be achieved in becoming wise, wisdom, courageousness, chastity, and justice. 4 things. Wisdom, courageousness, chastity, and justice. How do they define it and how do they say that you have to work? It's a long story, but briefly 2 things. He says wisdom is a result of refinement of intellectual faculty. There are 4 faculties. The intellectual faculty, the faculty of anger, the faculty of desire, and faculty of imagination. Because I'm trying to rush it and finish it off, I'll give you it again. Wisdom is a result of the refinement of the intellectual faculty. The 2 extremes of the intellectual faculty are craftiness and stupidity. Many people, they try and overuse their wisdom and they become crafty, they misuse others. And many do not use their wisdom to the proper extent and they become stupid. These are the 2 extremes. But the refinement would result in, if you refine this faculty, the intellectual faculty, it would result in wisdom. The second faculty is a faculty of anger. The 2 extremes are audaciousness and cowardice. A person who goes and looks for trouble. The bullies, you would call them. The bullies in this society or any society, they are overusing the faculty of anger. They do not have control on their faculty of anger. And some are coward. They will not even stand up for any oppression that is going on. Again, both are condemned in Islam. The middle path is courageousness. When it is needed, stand up for your own rights and for the rights of the society. The third is a faculty of desire. Once you define this faculty, the faculty of desires, you have chastity. But the 2 extremes of this faculty are gluttony and immobility. Some people who just think about their desires and sexuality and eating. All they think about is food and the opposite gender, that's all. So they become, the gluttony is the one result. And the other is immobility. They ignore it completely. And I don't know, all sorts of illnesses can come out of it. They have gone deep into it. But chastity, if you refine it, you would only have haya or chastity, yes? And the last thing is the faculty of imagination. If you refine it, then you become just. Justice or adalat. If every individual became just, then we'll have a just society. Islam says that it came to establish social justice. The 2 extremes are tyranny, oppression, yes, you oppress others. And the other extreme will be bearing tyranny. You would prepare and always accept oppression, so you're encouraging the tyrant to continue its oppression. So the 2 extremes are both discouraged, and one should become just. They should not oppress others, and they should not take the injustice. How you break the cycle of injustice, for example, the example is given is that your boss tells you off because you can't tell off your boss because he's your boss. So you come home and tell your wife off because you feel that I'm the stronger person. The man feels he's stronger. Even the bad look, that evil look is an oppression. Because you only give it to the person weaker than you. You don't give it to someone who is huge, he'll beat you up. So you look and you give your dirty look or the evil look to the person who is weaker than you. You think your wife is weaker, so you take it out on her. Can't you cook properly? You have no problem. You just want to take out it from your system. My boss has told me off, so I have to take it out on someone else. So you take it out on someone weaker than you. Your wife doesn't stop. She would tell off on other children. You're breaking your toys. So the older child beats up the younger one. And the younger one just breaks the toys. Because you see, one of them did not give up their cycle. One of them should have stopped. It should have been one of them saying, I will not take it out on others. So control would mean justice. And taking it out on others would mean oppression. Oppression doesn't mean that you become Saddam Hussein. That's the extreme, the highest level of oppression. Oppression exists in everyone's life. We oppress each other. So the oppression may be different in life. I hope I did not waste your time. If I did, you would all forgive me for it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Molana will take questions. It would be better if we do the questions which are related to the topic first, and then he's happy to take any questions.
Can you raise your hand?
Okay. Just hold on. Well, thank you. Thanks so much. This is really interesting, and thank you so much for coming to visit us at the university here. I have 30 questions, but I'm going to ask only 3 briefly, and I need to come to talk to you. You kindly actually took us through a very interesting journey, I mean, which is really too much to capture in 1 hour. So I'm trying to take notes, but I'm sorry I couldn't take it all. What's the difference between spirit and soul from the Islamic perspective? Also, I mean, for the benefit actually of the some people in the audience and in general, in the Quran, God referred to Jesus as the Spirit of God, and how that means practically. And the third one, actually, which is you mentioned that life is not just about to live for one's own life and desire, but to live to the others. What the goal we try to achieve in living for the others? And thank you.
I'll try and remember all 3 questions. If I do forget, you remind me. The first part about Jesus or
No, the difference between the spirit and the
spirit
soul.
and soul. Now, my mind, I'm trying to combine everything. The question is very philosophical. I will not go too much into it, just briefly. Many argue that soul and spirit are the same thing. Many philosophers argue. There is no difference. Some argue no. There is a difference. One in Arabic is nafs and the other one is ruh. Nafs and ruh. Now, the spirit is the ruh, and the spirit itself has the positive aspects. When the Quran says that kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut, it is every soul that will taste death. They say there is a connection between body and spirit, and that is soul. That has death. The body has the spirit that leaves it, and therefore it is regarded as dead. But the ruh or the spirit lives. But I do not wish to go too much into it because it's a philosophical topic and it will confuse many people.
Okay.
I may not be able to explain it very well, you see, because it's a topic that is quite intellectual. Now the second question is about Jesus. God has referred to him as Spirit of God. Adam and Jesus, peace be upon them both, have been referred to in the Holy Quran as that they did not come to this world in a normal way that we all come. We are born from a father and mother. But Jesus and Adam did not come to this world in a, there is no physical development for them in that way. They were created, God says, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, and I breathed into them my soul or my spirit. The word spirit, ruh, has been used here. I breathed into them my spirit, the ruh. Now, again, because they have not gone through that development of like other people, they both have a miraculous life. More so in the sense that about Jesus, because he still developed in the womb of a mother, but Adam did not even go through any of that. He was created and God breathed into him his spirit. What does it mean when the infallible was asked, what does it mean, Spirit of God? Did something come out of God and go into Adam or Jesus? He said, no, just like the house of God. God doesn't live in it. Spirit of God, meaning the ruh or the spirit, was related and connected to God. Not that it came out of God.
But physically, what does it mean?
Physically, it is a spirit which is holier than all other spirits. So it is Ruh Qudus, the Holy Spirit. The words about Jesus are different, and likewise like Adam. So it doesn't mean that a spirit came out of God, but it is not like normal people.
But is it not the power of God?
It is the power of God in one way. But how is it? I think once we come out of the material world and go into the spiritual world in the hereafter, we'll understand it then.
Okay.
Because it's a spiritual side.
So,
And the last part
and
was
the last
about,
one actually
yes,
then.
we should try and live for others. How can we achieve that?
No, actually, what will the goal to achieve in living for the others? Yes.
What is the goal to be achieved in living a life for others? What is the goal? Because God says you try and live for me, and He is not you. So the ultimate goal is God Himself, and not others, but others who serve God, even if they don't serve God because they are creation of God. When the first Imam al-Islam, and the UN, the United Nations, has actually sent that letter of Ali ibn Abi Talib from Nahj al-Balagha to all the Muslim governments in 2001, if I'm not mistaken. they said that this letter should be the means of governance for all Muslim leaders today. He says, O Malik, to Malik al-Ashtari he writes, he says, O Malik, when you are working as a leader of the community, or when you are governing the people, there should be two aspects. All of the people, they are either they share humanity with you, or they share your religion with you. If they don't share your religion, then you cannot implement and enforce your religion onto them, but they still share humanity. So at least live the standards of humanity with them. So that should be the ultimate aim and goal.
I just wanted to ask if you could clarify which chapter in the Quran it said about the Spirit of God being cast into Adam.
Surah Al-Imran, Surah number 3. Indeed, the example, I'll try and read the verses. Indeed, the example of Jesus is like that of Adam. Surah number 3 has 200 verses, but I think it is 50 onwards. If you read, it talks about the Christianity, it talks about, it talks about Jesus. There are other verses as well. I'm only referring to this chapter, but I actually just now recall that there are other chapters that also talk about it. In Surah number 2 as well, verses 30 to 37, it talks about Adam being created and the Spirit of God. And Surah Fussilat, Surah number 14. So there are many different chapters I'm now recalling, probably 6-7 different chapters. But at least these 2-3. So there are many different chapters I'm now recalling, probably 6-7 different chapters. But at least these 2-3 chapters that I can recall.
I have a question actually on when the soul is created. Like, is it when we come to this world? Like, for example, the key is inside of mother's body, or is it like before?
Very good question. When is the soul created? Is it when the child comes to the womb? When the child is in the womb of a mother, there comes a stage where the spirit is breathed into that body. But there are traditions from the Holy Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He has said that the spirits were created well before the creation of this world. And the day all of the spirits were created, God all asked them one question: Alastu bi rabbikum? Am I not your Lord? And they all said, Bala. Of course you are. The first word all the spirits uttered. Even the spirit that was to live only for 1 day or an hour was created then. And they all said yes. Because the Arabic word was starting with the B, and that's why the Quran starts with Ba. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, with a B, and not with an A. It could have started with an A like Alif, Alhamdulillah, but it starts with a B because the first word that we uttered started with B, so God said, it will be a reminder for you that you uttered the first word with B, and I have started. So what does that involve? There are theological arguments and there are philosophical arguments. There are hundreds of pages written on this topic, if not thousands. What does it mean that all the spirits were created back then and then they were granted? The children that die, no matter who they belong to, they all go to paradise because they were pure. Excuse me. We at a stage after adulthood, after the age of 12, 13, 14 onwards, we misuse this body through the spirit and either become evil or good. And many times we can repent and go back. But the soul itself has been made to serve God, and it is pure and clean. And they were all created thousands, if millions, in fact, millions of years. There is only one tradition that indicates that a day from the heaven equals 1,000 earth years. 1,000 earth years are equal to only 1 day of the heavens. And they were created thousands of years from the heavens before the creation of this world. So, exact date, I can't give you.
You mentioned earlier the identity. My hand doesn't belong to me. but you can also say my spirit, my soul, ruhi, nafsi. So how do you...
Very good question. I refer to that you would say my body, so the body belongs to I. But when you say that this body belongs to the spirit, and then you say my spirit, then who does the spirit belong to? So the question is very beautiful that, how would you refer to the spirit? Does that spirit belong to something else? No. When you say I to my spirit, then that spirit, my spirit, is talking about itself or the memory. So that spirit itself contains all those things and it is referring to I. And because our junctures or our, the words that we use, they are conventional. And because of these words being so conventional, our words are limited in describing that spiritual side. Therefore we used to, even God has used my spirit. It is not His. So it belongs to Him. It is His property. So that's what it's referring to. But it doesn't refer to that it is again, it belongs to something else. No, the spirit is the owner of this body. This body again belongs to God and it is only an endowment to us. So we should not hurt it in any way or form because we'll be held responsible for hurting it. And the brother at the front here. Someone at the front here.
You mentioned about how the body can be treated if we don't treat it or maybe not eating and drinking. And you said the soul also, our spirits, can also be depleted by some of the actions. I just wanted to ask what are best possible ways to constantly renew or keep our spirits in check.
Very good question. I'll just repeat it for the brothers. We had said that the body itself decays if you're not eating and drinking, or if you're eating and drinking harmful food to the body. Likewise, you'll have harmful food for the spirit. There are harmful things for the spirit. You do certain things that they're harmful. What should you do to keep up the spirit and keep it fresh and active and healthy? There are many practices. Number one, just keeping yourself in the presence of God at all times. Number two, not doing anything which is regarded as a sin or an evil act. Certain prayers and supplications. They say that if you washed your body, there would not be any dirt or grease left on your body. Likewise, if you take your spirit into the bath of prayer 5 times daily, then there will be no sins left on it. So washing it daily and reminding yourself, even to keep something that reminds you, because some argue insan, the word human being, insan in Arabic is from nisyan, from forgetfulness. We forget. We need reminders, constant reminders. I become good and then when I go out, I go back to my routine. So we need constant reminders. Even if I say I want to read, then things distract me. So we need constant reminders, which will take us back to God. And the biggest reminder is death. And that's what takes you continuously back to God. Remind yourself that you will die one day. That will not distract you from God. Because death is the biggest admonisher. You don't need another person to admonish you if you just remind yourself of death. That is the biggest admonishment.
That's one straight question. How would I come to know that I have got my spirituality and either in the materialistic world?
How would we know that we have left our spirituality and we've entered in the material world? There are different signs even in the Holy Quran. The Quran says, "Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar." It should stop you from indecency and evil. If you're not stopping from indecency and evil, then you are not in your spirituality. Indecency and evil, this is what you should be stopping from. The second, there are many different signs. The other signs, look what you are going through. Anger is from Satan and Satan is from fire. So you should be burning. That will give you, and they say, perform ablution for ritual purification. So that will kill your anger. we all have different deficiencies, spiritual deficiencies, weaknesses, as I should call them properly, not deficiencies, weaknesses. Certain people do not have control over their anger. You would know that your desires are in your control, and you are not in control of your desires. Once you are fulfilling the desires, if your desires are being controlled by you, you will be in control. You are riding the horse and you turn it left or right, then you are in control. If you are not in control, that means your spirituality is going down. Once you are in control, then you will be controlling your desires and your anger and your all the things that have to do with the material world. So if you're in control, then you are spiritual. If you're not, then you are into material world. All the answers. Yes, sir.
First of all, can I thank you for being here tonight?
Thank you.
And for the gracious way you have shared your teaching. Some here will know that I'm the coordinating chaplain and a Christian, and very interested in how we can build relationships between our faiths. So thank you, first of all. I'm struck throughout all of your presentation by the strong areas where we can stand side by side. I was very moved by your description of the highest form of spirituality, if I've understood it right, and you must correct me. The highest form of spirituality being a soul that is at rest and serves others, looking outwards, always looking to serve. In St. Matthew's Gospel, part of the scriptures that I cherish, Jesus speaks of judgment and tells a wonderful story, an awesome story of the king being brought before him, different groups of people. Some go to righteousness and heaven, and others to damnation. And some are confused as to why they go to glory and heaven. And it's the answer the king gives to each is that they served him in serving the little ones of this life. We have so much there. Now a question. What can we do as Christians and Muslims to promote a better understanding of the common ground and of this value of service?
Very good question. First of all, thank you very much for your comments and encouragement. And secondly, for Sister Meher who had organized it, and for yourself and all the people who are in charge here for letting us come and address. There are many common grounds. All the religions will have more in common, and the Holy Quran says, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ, to the Holy Prophet, he says, tell the people of the book, the Jews and the Christians, that come and sit together because we have many common grounds. We have Adam, we have Abraham, we have Moses, we have many common things. And the basic outline is the same in all religions, to be good. No religion promotes evil and oppression. So this is the most beautiful about all religions. Second most important thing is that all religions are now asking for peace. My encouragement on that would be, as a Muslim, that the Quran says peace would be achieved if justice was to prevail. If people had justice, then they would be peaceful. And if they did not have justice, then they will not be peaceful. And I think if we can promote that, if I was not given my share and my right, then I may not have the control on my own self. And I may go out to do some evil because my share wasn't given to me. My rights were not given to me. So the peace would not be. I think that's the highest level of achievement if we can try and do that and establish as Christians and Muslims. Just the two religions. Christianity has something like 1.8 billion followers and probably more. and there are more than 1.5 billion Muslims. So you can just imagine just the two make more than half the population of the world. So if they were just to make, peace and justice, you would see huge change to the rest of the world. And I think that is the solution. The peace would be achieved through justice. There's a brother.
I have a question, like in Quran, there's a mention of Molana. I want to know that is there any Bible mentions that thing like in the Bible? Is there a mention of that thing? Or maybe if we are talking to Christians, can we give reference of that thing to them?
In chapter number 3, verse number 61, God says that whoever still requires a proof from you on the oneness of God, then say to them that we will fast for 3 days, and then we will come to pray to God, that whoever is truth will prevail them and leave the others to God. That is what it's a long topic, but briefly the Bible doesn't mention it because it happened after the revelation of Bible. God had already revealed Bible or Torah, and it happened after the revelation, so it doesn't mention it. But the histories do mention it, and that's where the Muslims and the Christians came together in 7th Hijrah, 6th of the 7th Hijrah. Those are the histories of the Bible.
I just wanted to ask, what is the role of spirit in Alam al-Barzakh, and what is Alam al-Barzakh?
Okay. I'll take that to be probably one of the last questions, if I may. Okay. One more question after this, if there was any. There are different stages of the spirit itself. The time when it was created, up to when it comes into the womb, and then the time it was in the womb, and then the second stage in this world, and the fourth stage is after death up to the day of judgment, and the fifth stage is after the day of judgment. Now Barzakh is basically the fourth stage. After this death, after the death of this life, up to the day of judgment. On the day of judgment we will be given either the paradise or, depending on our own doings, we are given the hell or the heaven. But before that, what happens to the spirit? Does it end? The Holy Prophet says that your grave can be, the grave itself can be a garden from the gardens of the paradise, and it can become a hole from the holes of the hellfire. You will see some result of your doings in the hereafter, straight after death up to the day of judgment. Number one. Number two, the questions were asked, is it fair from death to the day of judgment? Many people die at many different stages. So one may be punished for 2,000 years and one may be punished for 10,000. What happens? So the Holy Prophet said there is no, the time limit only applies to this life, and it doesn't apply to the hereafter. Eternity comes in the hereafter. So the soul and the spirit itself is for eternity. It is not for a limited abode. It is for eternity. So the hereafter itself, the spirit either goes through, so the spirit goes through different stages of the doings that it has done in this world. Does that answer the question? So that is basically a simple outline. Bainahuma barzakhun, the Quran has talked about it, and there are more traditions on it. There are many books. If you want to read The Journey of the Unseen in English, that is a translation, you'll probably find it on alislam.org, al with a hyphen, islam.org, or Journey to the Unseen. Probably more in detail, about 100 pages on it, about the hereafter. The last question.
I was really interested in what you just said. Sorry, your last comment just now made me very interested in the concept of time. Because in terms of clock time, we understand it in something that we can measure. But psychological time is something that is very different depending on the activity that you have and so on. So what kind of time are you referring to when you're saying it's eternity rather than time as we understand it here? Can you explain a bit more?
Very good question. Again, a very philosophical question. These are the things that I do not wish to enter. This is a valley that has no end. But very briefly, you know, when the Quran or the traditions, they describe time to us, it would have the timing as we understand it. The eternity, when we talk about, is it a psychological? There were traditions asked by the Holy Prophet, is it the soul that will, the spirit that will enter the paradise, or will it be a body? Will we be resurrected with our bodies? Yes. And then there were many arguments. What about the people that were eaten by other animals? They've become a part, their body has become a part of another animal. Will they be brought back? What about the things that become powder and they become earth and they become plants and soil and they're eaten? So a person mashed up an old bone into powder and brought it to the Prophet and blew it on his face. وَمَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ, and he blew it on his face in chapter number 36, Surah Yasin. He said, and who will resurrect these bones that have become powder? The Almighty God said, قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنْشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ خَلْقٍ عَلِيمٌ. Say to them, the one who created them the first time when they were nothing will resurrect them. Because making them the first time when they were nothing, making something from nothing, when we make something, we make it from something. God made everything from nothing. Making something from nothing is more difficult than resurrecting something, bringing it back to life. So He can bring it, and He has knowledge, and He is all informed. So He'll bring it back, and then it will be a physical body that will enter the paradise for eternity, and infinity. What does that mean? Hum fiha khalidun, the Holy Quran continuously says, and they are there forever. One of the beautiful sayings by Imam Ali, and I want to end it with this tradition. He says there are 3 things in heaven, in paradise, in Jannah, which are better than the Jannah itself. He says, number 1, eternity. No matter how good you do in this world, there is always that thought in the back of your mind, I'm going to die. But once you are dead and in the paradise, there is no end. He says, it is only and only in paradise, but it is better than the paradise. There is no end, there is eternity. It is better than the paradise. He says, it is better than the paradise itself. Secondly, he says, the pleasure of God, and I leave it to these 2. He says, no matter how good you do in this world, you're not sure if God is pleased with you or not. You think, I wish He's pleased with me. But if you're in paradise, you are sure that God is pleased with you, because He wouldn't place you in paradise unless He was pleased with you. So that is better than the paradise itself. And the third thing I didn't mention because I didn't want to, but the neighborhood of the good ones, the Holy Prophet, the messengers of Allah and His holy progeny. Because they are the highest level of humanity. They served, from Adam to Muhammad, all the prophets, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, David, all of them, peace be upon them all. They will be in paradise. And you are a neighbor to them. Whenever you wanted to see them, you knock on the door and say, I just want to see you once again. He said that feeling that you have access to them for eternity is very beautiful. So he says 3 things exist in paradise and are better than the paradise. And I end here. I could continue, but I think it would be not justice to all the people present. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Can I ask you all to leave the feedback forms right in front, please?